Have you ever wondered why some men, despite outward success and societal acclaim, seem perpetually adrift, their achievements feeling hollow, their relationships brittle, and their inner landscape a barren wasteland? It's a paradox observed in countless lives, a silent struggle behind closed doors, often manifesting as a gnawing emptiness that no external validation can fill. This isn't merely a lack of satisfaction. It's a profound disconnect, a spiritual drought rooted in something far deeper than fleeting desires. What if this pervasive unease, this insidious sense of unfulfillment, stems from a fundamental imbalance within the masculine psyche, a neglect of an essential, often misunderstood, internal force? We're talking about the profound consequences when a man, consciously or unconsciously, ignores the feminine within. Consider the story of Elias, a man whose life, from an external vantage point, shimmered with the veneer of perfection. A sharp mind, a formidable career in high finance, a sprawling penthouse apartment overlooking the city's glittering skyline, and a curated circle of influential friends. He commanded respect in boardrooms, his decisions unyielding, his logic impeccable. Yet, beneath the polished facade, Elias was a solitary fortress. His relationships were transactional, built on power dynamics and mutual benefit rather than genuine connection. His personal life felt like a meticulously planned business merger, devoid of spontaneity, warmth, or vulnerability. He approached emotions with the precision of a surgeon, dissecting them into manageable components, never allowing them to truly feel. This detachment, he believed, was his strength, his shield against the chaos of human sentiment. He prided himself on his rationality, his stoicism, his ability to suppress what he perceived as the irrational urges that plagued lesser men. His world was built on a rigid structure of control, a universe where every variable was accounted for, every outcome predicted. The very notion of surrendering to an unknown current, of embracing the unpredictable ebb and flow of emotions, felt like a catastrophic failure of character. He viewed tenderness as weakness, intuition as folly, and empathy as a distraction from the relentless pursuit of goals. He was, in essence, a man operating solely from his dominant masculine principle, his analytical prowess honed to a razor's edge, but at a severe cost. One evening, after closing a multi-million-dollar deal that should have brought a surge of triumph, Elias found himself staring out at the city lights, a strange, hollow ache resonating within his chest. The victory felt flat. The customary rush of endorphins was absent, replaced by a dull throb of indifference. He walked over to his meticulously organized bookshelf, his gaze falling upon a dusty, forgotten volume of poetry gifted to him years ago by a former flame, a woman he had dismissed as too emotional. He had never opened it, deeming it frivolous, a waste of his precious time. Now, a peculiar curiosity stirred within him. He pulled it down, the smooth cover cool beneath his fingers. He opened to a random page, his eyes landing on lines that spoke of moonlight, of longing, of a beauty that transcended the logical. A flicker, almost imperceptible, of something akin to yearning stirred in his hardened heart. It was a sensation he hadn't allowed himself to feel in decades, a soft whisper from a part of himself he had long silenced. He quickly shut the book, dismissing the feeling as fatigue, a momentary lapse in his otherwise unshakable composure. Yet the seed was planted. The following weeks saw a subtle unraveling in Elias's meticulously constructed world. Small irritations escalated into simmering resentments. Minor setbacks at work felt like personal affronts. His once unshakable confidence began to fray at the edges, replaced by an unfamiliar anxiety. He found himself more irritable with his staff, less patient with his colleagues, and increasingly isolated in his opulent apartment. The silence, once a welcome reprieve, now echoed with a profound loneliness. He started having vivid, unsettling dreams. In one, he was chasing a fleeting, shimmering figure through a dense, primeval forest, never quite able to grasp it. The figure, though indistinct, evoked a powerful sense of both allure and elusive wisdom. He would wake with a sense of unease, the dream clinging to him like a shroud, its meaning just beyond his grasp. His analytical mind, so adept at dissecting market trends and financial reports, was utterly bewildered by these internal shifts. He sought solace in familiar patterns: longer hours at the office, more demanding workouts at the gym, even more rigorous adherence to his Stoic philosophy. But the gnawing emptiness persisted, a silent antagonist in the theater of his life. One rainy afternoon, while rushing through a crowded street, Elias bumped into an elderly woman, causing her to drop a bag of groceries. Instinctively, he knelt to help her, something he would have typically delegated to an assistant. As he gathered the spilled apples and oranges, he met her gaze. Her eyes, ancient and full of a quiet wisdom, held no judgment, only a gentle understanding. "Sometimes, young man," she said, her voice raspy but kind, "the things we push away the hardest are the very things we need to embrace." Her words, simple yet profound, struck him with an unexpected force. They resonated with the unsettling dreams, with the hollow ache, with the unread poetry book. It was as if a crack had appeared in the perfectly polished facade of his ego, allowing a sliver of light to penetrate the darkness within. This seemingly trivial encounter became a turning point, an unexpected catalyst that forced him to confront the disquiet within. Elias's journey is a vivid illustration of what happens when the anima, Carl Jung's concept of the unconscious feminine side of a man's personality, is neglected. His rigid adherence to a purely masculine principle, characterized by logic, control, and achievement, had left his inner world barren. He had projected his own undeveloped feminine qualities, intuition, emotional intelligence, capacity for nurturing and connection, onto the outside world, or simply suppressed them. This suppression created an imbalance, leading to emotional aridness and a deep sense of unfulfillment. The pain point here is the spiritual and emotional bankruptcy that arises from an imbalanced psyche, where the vital, life-giving energies of the feminine principle are denied. His initial resistance to the poem, his dismissal of the emotional, and his general detachment are classic symptoms of a man operating solely from his conscious ego, ignorant of the rich, often paradoxical depths of his unconscious. The dream of the elusive figure, the encounter with the wise old woman, and the persistent feeling of emptiness were all manifestations of his unintegrated anima, calling out for recognition and integration. For those who find themselves in a similar state of emotional constriction, remember that the path to wholeness lies not in rejecting your masculine strengths, but in consciously cultivating and integrating your inner feminine. This isn't about becoming less of a man. It's about becoming a more complete, more vital human being. How do you begin this journey? Start by paying attention to the whispers of your intuition, those gut feelings you often dismiss. Allow yourself to feel emotions, not just analyze them. Engage in activities that foster creativity and connection, whether it's exploring art, music, or simply spending time in nature without an agenda. Seek out relationships that encourage vulnerability and genuine intimacy, rather than just transactional exchanges. The wise old woman's words echo a profound psychological truth. Sometimes, the very things we fear and push away hold the key to our liberation. Embrace the discomfort, for it is often the precursor to profound growth. Your soul is yearning for this integration, this blossoming of your full potential. The journey inward, the exploration of that shimmering figure in the dream, often leads to a confrontation with a deeply ingrained societal narrative, the pervasive pressure on men to embody an almost exclusively masculine ideal. This relentless conditioning, as Sigmund Freud might have observed, shapes the very architecture of our unconscious, creating defense mechanisms against anything perceived as unmanly. But what happens when this societal script clashes with the innate human need for wholeness, for the integration of all aspects of the self? What occurs when a man, in his relentless pursuit of external markers of success, consistently projects his own undeveloped feminine qualities onto the women in his life, burdening them with the responsibility for his emotional landscape, or, more insidiously, becoming ensnared by manipulative individuals who embody those very unintegrated aspects? Consider the subtle, yet devastating, dance of projection that unfolds in countless relationships. Imagine Arthur, a man of formidable intellect, celebrated for his logical prowess and his ability to dissect complex problems with surgical precision. He prided himself on his emotional detachment, viewing feelings as messy, unpredictable obstacles to rational thought. Yet, in his personal life, Arthur repeatedly found himself drawn to women who were fiercely emotional, intensely dramatic, and often quite volatile. His first marriage was to a woman who would erupt in passionate arguments over perceived slights, her emotional storms mirroring the chaos Arthur meticulously suppressed within himself. He would react with exasperated logic, attempting to fix her emotions, to rationalize her feelings away, rather than simply acknowledging them. He saw her as irrational, overly sensitive, and difficult, failing to recognize that he was projecting his own unacknowledged emotionality onto her. He was experiencing his anima through the external, rather than integrating it internally. His second significant relationship followed a similar pattern. He became involved with a captivating artist, whose life was a whirlwind of creative passion and dramatic highs and lows. She was spontaneous, intuitive, and deeply empathetic, qualities Arthur admired from a distance, but couldn't seem to embody himself. He admired her freedom, her uninhibited expression, yet he also found himself constantly trying to anchor her, to bring order to her perceived chaos. When she would speak of her intuition, he would counter with empirical evidence. When she expressed vulnerability, he would offer solutions rather than simply holding space for her feelings. The admiration slowly morphed into frustration, as he subtly, almost imperceptibly, attempted to shape her into a more manageable version of herself. He was, in essence, trying to control the very feminine qualities he had exiled from his own psyche, qualities that manifested with magnetic force in the women he chose. This phenomenon is precisely what Jung cautioned against with his concept of the anima/animus. The anima, the feminine principle in a man's unconscious, contains all the qualities typically associated with the feminine: intuition, emotion, creativity, empathy, receptivity, and connection. When a man fails to integrate these aspects, they don't simply vanish. Instead, they are often projected onto external figures, most commonly women. This projection can manifest in two primary ways. Either a man idealizes women, placing them on a pedestal and expecting them to embody all the emotional depth and nurturing he lacks, or he demonizes them, viewing them as irrational, weak, or overly emotional, precisely because they reflect the aspects of himself he has repressed and despises. Arthur, in his relationships, swung between these two poles, oscillating between adoration for the emotional woman and frustration with her very nature. He was forever seeking an external solution to an internal problem. What makes this pattern so insidious is its often unconscious nature. Arthur truly believed he was seeking a partner who completed him, someone to balance his own rational nature. He didn't realize he was using his partners as a psychological receptacle for his own unacknowledged emotional life. This created a painful dynamic. The women in his life felt misunderstood, constantly battling against his attempts to fix or control them, while Arthur felt perpetually let down, unable to find the harmonious balance he craved. The relationships inevitably buckled under the weight of these unspoken expectations and unintegrated projections. He would lament, "Why are women so emotional? Why can't they just be logical?" Never realizing the question was less about them and more about his own internal landscape. Furthermore, this unintegrated anima can leave a man particularly vulnerable to manipulation. Because he has not developed his own inner connection to intuition and emotional intelligence, he may struggle to discern genuine intentions from deceptive ones. He might be drawn to individuals who expertly play on his unfulfilled emotional needs, offering a semblance of the very connection and understanding he lacks, while secretly exploiting his vulnerabilities. Think of the countless stories of highly successful, seemingly astute men who fall prey to manipulative partners, their robust external defenses crumbling in the face of emotional cunning they are ill-equipped to counter. This isn't a moral failing. It's a psychological blind spot, a consequence of an undeveloped inner feminine that could otherwise serve as a discerning guide. The challenge for men like Arthur, and indeed for all men, lies in withdrawing these projections. It requires a conscious effort to reclaim and integrate the exiled parts of the self. Carl Rogers' emphasis on unconditional positive regard, while often applied to external relationships, can be profoundly transformative when directed inward. Can you extend unconditional positive regard to your own emotional landscape, even the parts you deem unacceptable or weak? Can you allow yourself to feel, truly feel, without immediate judgment or the need to intellectualize? This process is not about losing your masculine strengths. Rather, it's about enriching them. A man who has integrated his anima is not less logical or less assertive. He is more emotionally intelligent, more intuitive, more empathetic, and ultimately, more capable of forming deep, authentic connections. He becomes a whole being, no longer reliant on others to carry the weight of his unlived emotional life. The path to integrating the feminine within begins with an honest inventory of your emotional life. What emotions do you habitually suppress or dismiss? When do you find yourself reacting with disproportionate anger or frustration? These intense reactions often point to areas where your unintegrated shadow, particularly the anima, is clamoring for attention. Engage in practices that cultivate emotional awareness. Journaling, therapy, mindfulness. Allow yourself to be moved by art, music, or nature. Cultivate relationships with individuals who value emotional depth and authenticity, who challenge you to explore your inner world rather than just focusing on external achievements. The strength of your logical mind is undeniable, but true power lies in the harmonious dance of logic and intuition, of intellect and emotion. What inner whispers are you silencing? What hidden depths are waiting to be explored? The journey of acknowledging and integrating the neglected feminine within ultimately culminates in a profound inner transformation, a rebirth of the self that resonates with Carl Jung's concept of individuation. This final stage is not merely about recognizing a problem or understanding its psychological roots. It's about actively engaging with the unconscious, embracing its wisdom, and allowing it to reshape one's entire approach to life, relationships, and even self-worth. When a man finally heeds Carl Jung's warning and stops ignoring the feminine within, he steps onto a path of authentic power and deep fulfillment, moving beyond the superficiality of external validation to discover a rich, unwavering source of strength from within. Let us revisit Elias, the financial magnate from our first story, whose polished exterior concealed a vast emotional wasteland. After that fateful encounter with the elderly woman and the unsettling whispers from his unconscious, Elias found himself at a precipice. The strategies that had served him so well in the cutthroat world of finance, control, logic, suppression, were failing him in the intimate theater of his own soul. He felt an unprecedented sense of vulnerability, a raw exposure to emotions he had meticulously avoided for decades. This wasn't a comfortable feeling. It was akin to shedding a protective skin, revealing a sensitive, uncalloused layer beneath. He began to question everything he had previously valued. The endless pursuit of wealth, the power dynamics in his relationships, the stoic facade he maintained, all seemed less significant, almost trivial, in the face of this profound internal yearning. His initial attempts to engage with his inner feminine were clumsy, even awkward. He tried meditation, but his mind raced with financial projections. He attempted to express vulnerability to a colleague, only to be met with confusion. Yet, the seed that had been planted by the old woman and nurtured by the unsettling dreams refused to wither. He recalled William James's pragmatic approach to experience, understanding that truth is often found in the lived reality of an idea. For Elias, this meant experimenting with new ways of being, however uncomfortable they might feel. He started small. He allowed himself to linger a few extra moments at the park, simply observing the children playing, without the usual analytical commentary running in his mind. He found himself drawn to music he had once dismissed as too sentimental, discovering a surprising resonance within its melodies. He began to keep a journal, not of business strategies, but of his dreams, his fleeting emotions, the quiet observations he made about the world around him. This was uncharted territory, a foreign landscape compared to the logical spreadsheets and predictable algorithms that had defined his existence. The true breakthrough came during a particularly stressful period at work. A major deal, on which he had staked his reputation, began to unravel due to unforeseen market fluctuations. The old Elias would have doubled down, working longer hours, forcing solutions through sheer willpower, likely alienating everyone in his path. But this time, something was different. A deep sense of fatigue, not just physical but spiritual, washed over him. Instead of pushing harder, he found himself instinctively pulling back. He took a long walk, not to strategize but simply to clear his head. As he walked through a quiet botanical garden, a profound stillness settled upon him. He allowed himself to feel the anxiety, the frustration, but also, for the first time, a gentle wave of acceptance. It was a subtle shift, but monumental. He realized that the answers wouldn't come from relentless logic, but from a deeper, more intuitive knowing. Upon returning to his office, instead of immediately diving back into data, he sat quietly. An idea, seemingly out of nowhere, began to form, a creative, unconventional solution that bypassed the traditional aggressive tactics he usually employed. It was a solution born not from pure logic, but from a blend of his sharp intellect and a newfound capacity for intuitive insight. He presented it to his team, not with his usual unwavering certainty, but with a surprising openness, inviting collaboration and diverse perspectives. The outcome was not only successful, but it fostered a sense of camaraderie and shared achievement he had rarely experienced before. He realized that embracing a more fluid, receptive approach hadn't weakened him. It had made him more adaptable, more resilient, and far more effective. This integration extended beyond his professional life. He began to reach out to old friends, not with an agenda, but with genuine curiosity. He reconnected with his estranged sister, allowing himself to express regret and vulnerability, fostering a healing dialogue that had been impossible for years. He even picked up that dusty poetry book again, reading it not for intellectual dissection, but for the sheer pleasure of its evocative language, finding in its verses a reflection of the emotional depths he was now exploring within himself. His relationships shifted from transactional to deeply relational, enriched by a newfound capacity for empathy and authentic connection. The transformation in Elias was a testament to the power of individuation, the process Jung described as becoming a whole, unique self, integrating both conscious and unconscious aspects. He had moved beyond the rigid persona of the purely logical, dominant male. He recognized that true strength wasn't about suppressing emotion or maintaining absolute control, but about holding paradoxes, embracing vulnerability, and allowing the intuitive, creative, and relational aspects of his being to flourish. His journey wasn't about losing his masculinity, but about elevating it, making it richer and more robust by embracing the anima. He learned that the very source of his past unfulfillment was the rich, fertile ground of his inner feminine, waiting to be cultivated. For you, who might feel the echoes of Elias's struggle within your own life, remember this profound truth. Your journey towards wholeness is not about abandoning who you are, but about expanding who you can be. It is about understanding that the seemingly feminine qualities, empathy, intuition, creativity, emotional expression, vulnerability, receptivity, are not weaknesses to be suppressed, but vital strengths to be cultivated. When you integrate your inner feminine, you unlock a deeper wellspring of wisdom, resilience, and genuine connection. You move beyond the constant need for external validation, finding a quiet, profound sense of self-worth that originates from within. This is a path of courageous self-discovery, of shadow work that brings light to the hidden corners of your psyche. It's about allowing yourself to feel deeply, to connect authentically, to create without judgment, and to trust the quiet whispers of your intuition. Imagine the freedom of no longer being bound by rigid expectations, of being able to navigate the complexities of life with both the sharp sword of intellect and the compassionate embrace of intuition. This rebirth of your inner self will manifest in profound, positive changes. A newfound joy in simple pleasures, a deeper resonance in your relationships, a vibrant creativity that sparks innovation, and an unwavering sense of peace that permeates your being. If this story resonates with you, if you see echoes of yourself in Elias's journey, then know that the power to transform is already within you. Allow yourself to walk towards that which you have long avoided. Meditate, engage in creative pursuits, connect with nature, or simply allow yourself moments of quiet reflection. These acts are not trivial. They are profound steps towards reclaiming your wholeness. This is your invitation to a life of emotional richness, authentic power, and profound self-acceptance. The journey begins now with a single, courageous step inward. If you find it interesting or see yourself in the story, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment to help our channel feel from you. And if you know someone who needs this video, please send them this video as a necessary share. Thanks for watching. The end.